Hello, my name's Carl. This is my backyard. Welcome to Carl's Backyard. Beginning of October, we're going to have to bring a lot of the tropical plants inside real soon, and a lot of the non-hardy plants are going to have to get put away for winter. What I'm going to do today is just run through and take a look at some of the plants that surprised me by still being alive. At the beginning of the season, several plants I was certain were dead for one reason or the other, and it turns out they weren't dead. They're doing fine now. So I'm going to take a walk around and take a look at those. And so first up, I moved the plant. We didn't walk to it really. It was in a no good for filming location, and so I moved it over to here. But it is the String of Hearts plant. I did get this from Erica Lodes. Big shout out to her. There's nothing wrong with it. When I got it from her, it was perfectly fine and healthy and happy, and stayed that way for quite some time. I did, somewhere in the middle of summer, maybe early late spring, it had been placed on my potting table, which is partly under the, partly protected by the roof of the house, and doesn't directly get rained. It was on the potting table, and the potting table doesn't directly get rained on for the most part. It's on the north side of the house, kind of under the roof, and so it doesn't really get rained on. And I had sat this in a cardboard tray with some other stuff, and without realizing it, that cardboard tray had inched forward to where it was overhanging the edge of the table. It's normally not a problem, but after a couple of rainstorms, the cardboard gave way and the tray folded over and dumped this pot with this plant on the ground. And it was probably a week before I noticed it after it happened. So I had to scoop it back up, what was left of it, scoop back up, put it back in its pot, and wound up, I just sat it on a more stable shelf and kind of forgot about it again. So the fact that it's alive at all at this point is pretty remarkable, and I'm happy. It's growing. It's got some strings going on, so it's an actual string of hearts now. I'm happy about that. Let's go find the next plant. And next on the list is this Moon Valley Friendship plant, or something really close to that. It came out here, one of the last plants that came out here from my office. It spent most of the winter in my office and wound up not looking great at all. I was pretty sure it wasn't going to make it, but I brought it out here, sat it in this dappled shade spot, and threw water at it occasionally whenever I was watering the plants. And it's actually rallied back pretty nicely. Even though it's sitting here in this little spot of death, I got a bunch of dead plants going on, or empty pots, or dead pots, over here in this little corner. But this little Moon Valley has actually held its own and is doing pretty good over here. Also over here, if I can pan over, you can see all the dead pots. And there's the parlor palm, which I actually had out here last spring, last summer and last fall, and it did okay. I brought it inside and it held its own inside. I brought it outside and it scorched, and it scorched pretty bad. Most of the leaves, at least half the leaves, were browned or dead or tanned or yellowed, or some variation thereof. Trimmed off all the dead leaves, stuck it in the deep shade for most of the summer, and somewhere in the midsummer moved it over here into this dappled shady spot. It's actually come back really nicely. It's a little wild, a little untamed, but it's definitely green and still alive, so happy about that. And the next two are over here in the same kind of a plant cluster. I've got this Dieffenbachia. I bought two of them on clearance, or two pots of them on clearance, kind of late in the winter. And they lived on the kitchen table for probably a month and a half or 2 months maybe even, before coming outside. And as soon as they came outside, they either got scorched or they got drowned in all the rain and turned to mush. This pot here, because I just never clean up, having having sat long enough, this pot here did send up some new shoots. And there's 2 shoots, they're like right in line right now. I could have turned that pot a little bit, I suppose. There, now you can see it better. So yeah, it did put up 2 new shoots, and it is actually growing. And so happy about that. The other pot that I got is completely dead, sitting behind me. And there's definitely no new shoots in that aren't just weeds that blew in. Sitting next to that, if I can readjust here without throwing things off. My little Scindapsus. Go a little bit further there. It had started off in a larger pot. It was I don't think it was a larger collection. I think I got that small. Yeah, I think I got that as a starter. And I intended it to be growing up a pole. Problem is the pot with the pole in it wouldn't fit over here in the dappled, mostly shade, part sun. Yeah, part sun with dappled shade. How about that? Wouldn't fit over here where the plant would have preferred it apparently. Wound up getting more sun than it wanted, and along with a bunch of other plants, got scorched. I think I was down to a leaf with one or two leaves on the stem. And I wound up potting it over here, and it's actually come back. It's got a bunch of leaves, it's growing, it's got some vining going on. So happy about that one, it's doing really well. Random shot across the yard at all the plants over there. Eventually that'll be an actual tropical garden area. All the plants won't be out in the middle of the yard. I will have pushed back, and I need to get over there with the tiller and do some leveling of the ground and some other work over there. So hopefully next summer that'll all be much nicer organized. But just a fun random peek across the yard. You kind of get 4 for the price of 1 over here in the corner of the forgot what it's called. The Begonia luxurians in the center. It actually been doing really well, and then almost the next day its stems had all started to droop really badly. I'm at this point I'm going with the idea that the leaves just got heavy and caused it all to droop. I was worried about root rot for a little while. It had been getting too much water with all the rain and whatnot. I put those 2 bamboo stakes in to help hold it up, and that seems to have helped it a lot. It's got the leaves. As you can see, they're nice and flush and open. It's putting out new leaves. Seems to be doing great. I thought I lost this one midsummer, and it came back. So I'm happy about that. Over there on my left, I've got some of this Invicta vine, and when I got it, I got a little plug of it, and then I just left it as a little plug. I didn't pot it up anywhere really for a couple of months. Just because I was disenfranchised for a little bit, and yeah, just ignored it. I finally decided to go ahead and put it in here. It had a couple of leaves left, so I decided to go ahead and put it in the pot and see what happened. And it actually came back and is vining quite nicely now. On the right is a Janet Craig Compacta Dracaena. This one here spent most of the winter in my office on the shelf, and they actually wound up getting pushed to the back of the shelf, like the far back corner of the shelf, so it never got any light and barely got any water because it was behind other plants. I basically just kept forgetting about it. And it was down to maybe 3 leaves, had 3 live leaves. It was really dark colored and just not looking happy when I brought it out here at the beginning of the season. And as you can see now, it's many inches tall, several inches tall, and doing just fine. We could mention this Pulmeria right there. Again, that's one of these I got as a plug. Shortly after I ordered it as a plug, I went to a nursery or a garden center and found basically the same plant on sale 10 times larger for a little over twice the price I had paid. Mail order to get the plug. It's kind of what disenfranchised me. That whole order kind of bummed me out there for a minute. So again, it sat neglected for a month or so before I actually planted it up. And by that time, I was pretty sure it was dead and was just going through the motions of planting it up. But it's actually come back nicely. It's still not as big as the one I saw at the garden center. I'll probably just wind up buying some at the garden center next year if I decide I want more of it. But that is this corner of plants that surprised me by not being dead right now. Here's a better view of that Janet Craig compacta. And again, beginning of the season, this thing had died back to where it was entirely inside that pot. The leaf radius, diameter, the leaves had like one layer of leaves fit entirely within that pot. And over the summer, it's grown, whatever that is, 4 or 5 inches, and put on a ton of new leaves. It's looking bright and healthy and happy now. We got these 2 pots of Alocasia polys. They had been out last year on the edge of the stream. I brought them inside over winter. They lived just fine in my office until just about the end of winter, just before it was time to bring them outside. They started to yellow and turn to mush. They had been in 2 medium-sized pots compared to the 2 they're in now. I don't remember the exact circumstances of me repotting them, but I did repot them, and they were, I thought, dying at the time. The repotting was just kind of a last-ditch, we'll see what happens kind of situation. And they stayed dead. I was pretty sure that these were 2 dead pots. There was no growth for a while. And then suddenly, the larger pot started to put out some shoots. And then the smaller pot put out some shoots. And now, of the 4 Alocasia poly tubers, I guess, that I had repotted, all but one of them have shoots and leaves and are growing and doing fine. The 4th one, just this week, just within the last week or so, I noticed, is starting to put out a little bit of a green shoot. You can't really see it. Let me see if I can move the camera and zoom in on it. So there's the 4th out of 4 tubers. I assume they have tubers or bulbs, whatever they're growing from. And that's the 4th of them, is just now actually starting to put out some new growth. So that'll be coming inside soon, and hopefully they'll just keep growing and not do the turning to mush and almost dying at the end of winter thing this year. And these 2 little crotons here, single stem each, they get props just for still being here. Again, single stem each, and they wound up on a bench with other plants in front of and on top of them. Again, one of those basically buried in the back, lost and forgotten. The bench finally collapsed recently, and in getting the plants untangled from the remains of the bench, I found these 2 still alive and apparently doing just fine. I'd be remiss to not include this banana plant, which overwintered in my office from last year outside and didn't do so hot in my office. By the time it came back outside, I think it was down to 1 leaf, and it was a very brown and yellowed leaf. I wound up cutting it off, and so it basically regrew from the tuber this year, and it's done so very well. I'm very pleased with it, very happy with it. Bananas are awesome plants because you can horribly mistreat them. You just chop them down and they grow back pretty quickly. That was a short walk around the yard looking at some plants that I didn't think were going to make it, and they surprised me by pulling through. So even after a plant's died, never bother entering the pot because it might grow back. This would be the moral of today's story. Thank you for coming along. I have a lot to do getting ready for winter. I have a lot to do getting ready for next spring. Hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.